Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. I'm your host, James Gardner, certified athletic therapist, certified strength and conditioning specialist, yoga instructor, human being. This platform, for the pros, by the pros, anybody in the performance space, and beyond. Welcome here to share in the stories of professionals, experiences, journeys, learning along the way. It's a platform to connect, to network, and to be a part of a community that cares, with conversations that matter, experiences that resonate, and generate ideas, thought-provoking, organic dialogue, passionate pros. Brought to you as always by First Star Therapy, Mobility Tape, Epic, and Benchmark Athletics. In association with the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. It's First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being a part of it. Okay, it's official. She spoke in my ear. She told me we're being recorded. So here we go. Session 82, Let's Chat an Athletic Therapy podcast. We're on a Tuesday afternoon in the middle of the day. Janette Yee is here and really looking forward to this one. Have tried to line up our schedules and here we are. Finally got it off the table. I know you have a bunch of things, workshops and all of these things happening right now. So to carve this into the middle of the day, much appreciated. And I'm sure based on our limited interactions, but our interactions to date, all the listeners out there will be glad they've tuned into this one as well. Janette Yee is a passionate perinatal therapist. She's a mom of two, a former competitive runner, and rugby player. And it doesn't stop there. You're an athletic therapist, you're an RMT, you're a whole bunch of these other things, but you also have this amazing presence and energy, but beyond that, the opportunity to work with the greatest athletes in the world, right? Those that have given birth, those that are carrying life within them. I think this is beautiful. And I would love to sort of follow your path as to how you arrived at this point and how that plays in your daily life. So Janette Yee is here. It's session 82. We're always brought to you by First Star Therapy, Mobility Tape, Benchmark Athletics, and Epic. That's EPOCH. And in conjunction with the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. Janette, a pleasure to have you here. It's a brief and quick and dirty bio, but here we go. How did you get to where you are?
James, thank you so much for having me today. And yes, the stars are aligning. We finally get to speak to one another.
Yeah, exactly. And in the middle of the day too. I don't know, stars are always aligned, I suppose.
How did I get to where I am currently? Well, let's just say I have been an athletic therapist, a certified athletic therapist now for almost 20 years.
Beautiful.
So my work to focus in perinatal therapy actually came about very recently, because historically my passion was working with rugby players and runners, but mostly rugby players. I mean, as a rugby player myself, playing for the Toronto Scottish, the University of Toronto, playing alongside some of Canada's best rugby players, who have gone on to represent our country in a lot of different platforms. So, how did I get into perinatal therapy? Well, two ways. One is when my female athletes started their families, and when they were pregnant, they'd be like, "Hey, Janette, so can I still squat 300 pounds in the gym, or is this not safe?" I'd be like, so this was like, let's just put this into perspective here. This is like the mid 2000s, like 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know the answer. Let's go check the literature. And I go into the research, and sure enough, not a heck of a lot about whether or not high performance athletes can safely train during pregnancy, right?
Absolutely.
And then those athletes would give birth. And I specifically remember a track athlete who ran for Canada, and she had a cesarean. And she was given the green light by her physician to return to training, unbeknownst to him that she was a Canadian level track athlete. So she's like, well, Janette, so I went for an easy 5K run. And just to put into perspective, I'm 3.5 years postpartum. I still can't run 5 kilometers without stopping. This
Right.
woman had a major abdominal surgery and quite frankly, really hurt herself.
Right.
Really hurt herself. And you can imagine the frustration. It would be frustrating for anybody, but certainly for somebody whose intention was to go back into competitive running. She was very, very angry. So again, I go to the literature and I'm like, well, what the heck does the literature say? If the physician said, go ahead and run, who am I as the athletic therapist to say, no, I think maybe you might need to learn how to engage your core again. Maybe there should be a little bit of, I don't know, some strength and conditioning before you get back onto, right? But who am I? But who am I? And I realize, as I think a lot of us do in our, therapy careers, is we are somebody very important. We actually bridge that gap between what the surgeon says and what the athlete wants to do. It's not just, hey, I fixed your knee. You now have a fake ACL, go ahead and triple jump.
Right.
There is a lot of gap to be filled. So, how did I get into perinatal therapy? Well, that was the start of it. I realized, holy cow, I deal with injuries. I was a rugby therapist. You see some amazing injuries. And I mean that with the greatest respect. And as a rugby player myself, I had very good experiential knowledge with quite a few injuries myself, but nothing, James, compared to the sport, first of all, of pregnancy. Mm-hmm. And I call it a sport. And your wife, she's been pregnant. You see that, holy cow, this is the ultimate ultra marathon. You're sick as a dog for not just a day, for 3 months or maybe longer.
Right.
And you're tired as anything, but you still got to train. There's no halftime. You can't put that ball down for a minute and say, I don't feel like being pregnant for this next half a minute. I just need a break. There's no break. And this sport ends, it absolutely 100% ends in a season-ending injury. We'll call it childbirth. I don't care if it was as conservative and textbook of a vaginal delivery as it could have been. It is an injury. It is the biggest injury that I have had the privilege to experience twice.
Right. And not to step on your toes, but it's multi-systemed in nature. It's not just the physical giving birth. There are so many other pieces to this, I think, that you obviously get exposure to in your realm. But I think for listeners out there, those that haven't carried babies or haven't been exposed to that directly or indirectly in their professional time, there's a whole slew of other things that go along with carrying the baby up to that point and then through that point and then giving birth and then even years down the road. Right. And so I will come back to this for you. I think this is an amazing path in to where you're at. And I love that, 5 kilometers for me, no chance, let alone giving birth before I go for a 5 kilometer run. And you touched on the cesarean section, right? So the cesarean procedure, for those that aren't listening, can you give sort of a lay person's terminology explanation of what that is? I think most people hear it, they just did that thing and then the baby came out, but go a little deeper than that.
Yeah, for sure. So this particular injury, I meant surgery. I meant Caesarean birth.
Yeah, exactly. So, all of those things.
It's a major abdominal surgery. So it actually involves 3 major incisions. I didn't appreciate that until very recently. I always thought, like most people do, it's just that singular external incision that we all see, right? So what happens is the surgeon takes their scalpel and it's usually a horizontal incision across the lower part of the abdominals, somewhere between the belly button and your pubic bone, closer to the pubic bone. So usually horizontal incision. That goes skin and fat deep, stops at the abdominal wall. Then a second incision is made down the linea alba. So a vertical incision down between your right and left side of your rectus abdominis. That is opened up like a curtain. And then it reveals the pregnant uterus, which is completely incised through the entire uterine wall. That is retracted. You give birth to your baby, and then all three of those are separately closed. Now, what's interesting from a therapy point of view is this. The uterus is stitched up. The linea alba in general is not stitched up. And then the external incision is stitched up, or in some cases stapled and closed. But from a rehabilitation standpoint, I did not appreciate just how much the diastasis can be impacted after Caesarean birth. Diastasis meaning the stretch of the linea alba during pregnancy. If that linea alba has been cut through with a scalpel, how does that impact your healing? Right. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's an injury. Surgery, that's an injury. Like it is very important to have an intentional rehabilitation plan in place for that.
Yeah, and I think these are pieces that not a lot of people are aware of, and maybe even some who have given birth may not even be aware that this is a thing that needs to recover, and this is a thing that needs coaching, and this is a thing that it's an assault on the body, an insult to the body, I suppose, and therefore an injury. And your quote that you use regularly is that sort of this public perinatal healthcare is substandard, and Janette Yee, is making it better. I am making it better. And you've been a part of this. You've seen this. I love that quote. You've identified a problem. So we're kind of jump back and forth here a little bit maybe, but that's how you found your way in. You identified a problem, and now you're making the change happen by dedicating yourself to the literature, by working with your patients, by understanding the surgery. This is the liaison that athletic therapists, I think, hold in their own realm of the world, of the performance space, of the everyday athlete, of the professional hockey player, whatever the case may be. Do you feel like your education and your background in AT set you up for this, not only to find your passion, but to have a base knowledge to pull from in starting out?
Absolutely. And it was actually a very smooth transition. It's funny you mention it like that, because I mean, as athletic therapists, our background training is sports orthopedics. Well, what's a sport? Pregnancy, orthopedics, and an injury. Well, childbirth. We actually have the background training for this. And just like any other injury, you got to learn a little bit more about, let's say, ACL reconstruction and what the surgery entails and what those 8 months of rehabilitation is going to look like and how to rehab an athlete specific to their sport. We do that anyways. So what I'm trying to say, James, is that perinatal rehabilitation is perfectly suited for the athletic therapist. It's a specific sport and a specific injury, but it's not complicated. And so many of us are best positioned, in my opinion, to assist literally, and I don't know what the stats are, but I would say probably at least a quarter of the population, of the female population, have been pregnant before or have been pregnant multiple times. And most of them have given birth. Again, I don't know what the stats are, but if you think of that, that's a lot of people who just don't get the basic guidance for recovery that they deserve. And I am going to be provocative and say the words that they deserve. These are the athletes that are continuing the human race. You can't tell me that a person who's, perpetuating our population doesn't deserve to understand what's happened to her body and get the bare minimum understanding how to move again pain-free. And that quote that you said about me, it's meant to be provocative. Public healthcare is substandard. It is substandard for perinatal care. And should we therefore then critique public healthcare? Is that going to be helpful? I think the answer is no. And maybe in our lifetimes, James, you and I would be lucky to see a big change in perinatal public healthcare. And that gives people like you and I a massive opportunity to support this population. Because yes, we are part of private healthcare if we had to, delineate. And yes, people pay out of pocket to see us. But, and the big but is, we can make a massive difference.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be proprietary knowledge or this best kept secret, or only specifically trained people can help, pregnant and postpartum individuals. No, everybody can, all therapists, not just athletic therapists, all fitness instructors. As a matter of fact, my biggest teammates are fitness instructors, the Pilates instructors, the personal trainers, the yoga instructors. There is an appreciation for human movement from these professionals that I would argue that most therapists don't have. Not just athletic therapists, right? We must work together. We must work together to support those who perpetuate our population.
That's it.
There is more than enough need to go around. We really have to do better to support our moms.
Yeah, and best care with the athlete at the center of that best care. It comes down to a pretty simple equation of, if we're putting our best foot forward to help somebody and it's outside of our wheelhouse, we either direct them to somebody else or we connect with the people who are best suited to support us as practitioners. So you talk about a team approach as well. And I don't know where we're going to take this conversation, but I see this as, again, a role of an athletic therapist in my experience. And like each one of us, we are experiencing the world in our own way and through our own biases and through our upbringing and all of these pieces, educational pieces. But leaving the ego at the door as a practitioner, handling what you can handle, and then liaising with other professionals to either offload you or enhance you or learn from, or whatever terminology we're going to use, you have created a model where you're doing at home or virtual care. I know you're leading a challenge right now, right? A diastasis recti challenge, which is how long is that? 5 or 6 days? Is that what you did, or over a longer period of time? I can't remember.
No, it's just 5 days. We're on day 2, and it's only through my Instagram.
Beautiful.
Like we're doing some social media of healthcare here.
Yeah, no, beautiful. And these pieces of accessing and knowing that there are so many people out there, it's not like dollar signs are flashing in front of your eyes, but I think what flashes in front of my eyes and easily in front of yours too, and just hearing you speak, is the opportunity to help, the opportunity to make a positive impact in a space that desperately needs enhancement in terms of understanding, in terms of getting people what they need. And so you've come about this, and I don't mean to jump all over the place, but I do want to touch on some of these parts. And I think prior to getting on air here, we talked about maybe this is part 1 of 10, and absolutely I'd be more than happy to have you on here and dive into some of these in a different scenario for a little bit longer. But you've created now a niche for yourself, not a niche market. This is a market of people that, like you said, the best athletes in the world. They're carrying life and perpetuating the humanity, all of us, forward. And now you work from home and you work virtually, and you coach other coaches, and you help people understand. So from a business standpoint, this is something we don't learn a lot about in school. This is something that we don't necessarily have courses on, or maybe one here or there, or a guest speaker or something like that. But like, I could tape the what out of 1,000 ankles if you put them in front of me. But if you ask me to generate a business, or understand how to market, or what color I should have as my logo, or any of these pieces, like, that's all just on a whim. And so when we break this down into sort of the marketing piece and understanding that, and we don't have to get into too many details here, because I want to come back around to sort of what you do and how you go about it, and all of these other pieces more than anything else today. And honestly, come back around to how you got there. But how much learning did that take for you on your end? And was that all done after school, or was that something that you found early? The marketing piece, the understanding how to get your name out there, word of mouth, or flyers on a light pole, or how did that work for you, just in a brief summation?
Holy cow. Marketing was, it was needed from day 1 when I got my papers and I was a certified athletic therapist, and I realized I didn't know the first thing about building my own practice. As a therapist, as a healthcare provider, you're in business for yourself. And I didn't really understand that concept. And you're asking me, how long did it take for me to learn all this? Oh my God, it's a constant journey. And now and I'm calling it the gift of COVID, we've all been forced to really create a new model of care because most of us couldn't work in person. Most of us for like a good 3 months last year. And if we weren't bringing our products online, we had to create something online that we could sell essentially, right? But you can't sell anything if nobody knows who you are. So if you hadn't produced or created a brand before COVID hit us, then you're doing two things at once. You're building a brand and selling yourself. Like that's tough. So, to answer your question, it's a constant journey. And I have learned to embrace it. I used to fight it, James. I used to be like, why isn't my workplace giving me patients? Why aren't the doctors referring clients to me? All these kinds of things. And I should and that's me using my voice. I'm not mocking anybody else out there.
No, I'm with you. You sounded just like me though. Yeah.
This is me being me. So, and these are legitimate and such common concerns that our new grads definitely have. Our new grads all the way to now. I'm 43. I'm working with, alongside colleagues who have incredible brands in my eyes, but they don't see it because they weren't taught to be like, hey, I've worked for the Olympic teams for the past decade. Where the hell does it say that on your clinic?
Right.
Because I would come and see the therapist for the Olympic so-and-so team. Don't you think that's important? And, some things that, and it's a process. So I've been learning about it. I actually take specific coursework, and I am actually in clinician business groups to learn about this, to create that community, to force me to better my game, because I'm not a clinic owner, but my colleagues are. And they oversee multiple clinics and employ multiple clinicians. And I see those women and I go, I am no less capable of that. And I will be doing it differently. So my game, like you said, is not bricks and mortar. I'm entirely virtual. And the only bricks and mortar I happen to have is I see my athletes. I don't call them patients, by the way. So I see my athletes at their homes. That's
in their space where they're comfortable with the things that they have access to, which also makes a ton of sense.
Yes. And is that, so from going back to what you said, James, is this a dollar sign, like appropriate model? Heck no, it takes me half an hour to drive somewhere. I'm not billing for that time, but with that new mother in mind, let me ask that mother, would you prefer to pack up your newborn? You just had everything is leaking. Your this is crying. You don't know where anything is. You're trying to drive down to my downtown clinic. You're paying $50 for parking. Now you're late for your half-hour session. I'm billing you anyways. Get out of my room. I've got someone else in line. What about that works for the athlete? It doesn't. Yeah. And when we have athletes who literally give life and they have given their bodies to create, I think the very least healthcare can do is bring healthcare to them and say, let me do something for you now. Let me support you and elevate you and protect you and raise you, because you are raising our next generation.
So well captured, and just like, I mean, we could just mic drop that and leave it at that, because it's just, it's almost so commonsensical that it makes far too much sense for all of us not to be doing that. And it just captures the essence of where you're coming from. And I think that's the beauty of this platform, of us chatting here today and beyond. The passion, the compassion, and this idea of leading from a place of intuition, leading from a place of identifying the gap, both literally when it comes to the Caesarean section, and then figuratively speaking, but identifying this in the healthcare profession or the healthcare system. We can close those gaps by simply identifying them and doing something about it. within our scope of practice, within our
Yes.
knowledge base, within
Yes.
a team approach to healthcare of the greatest athletes on earth. So you come back around, I'll come back around to where it all began, and these different athletes coming to you and saying, can I squat 300 pounds? Can I go for a run? I just had a baby. I had it through cesarean section. And then the doctor said I can go back to running.
Yeah.
And without checking, like,
Yeah.
okay, if you tell me you're a runner, I'm going to say, I'm going to ask a few more questions. But in that case, the doctor doesn't ask. You're going to run? Okay, go ahead. Go back to running.
Mm-hmm.
Can I squat 300 pounds is a little bit of a, it depends question, right? And definitely, like, you need to perhaps walk before you run. Like, we need to build this thing back up. We can't just go from surgical table to running back. We can't just go from giving birth to exactly where you were before.
Correct.
How varied are these journeys in your application, right? In terms of the women that you see, the bodies that you see, the damage that's been done through surgery or through natural birth. And I don't mean damage. I just mean change.
I know what you mean.
Change.
The impact. Yeah.
Impact.
Yeah.
How varied are these? Like what degrees do you see? When do you start seeing people? All of these things. It's a loaded question. So we'll start with, how varied is your population? They've all given birth, but they've all done it their own way and in their own circumstances.
Yeah. Oh, it's extremely varied. It's varied in terms of age. Working with a 25-year-old is very different than working on a 45-year-old body. Working on a 45-year-old body that's given birth 4 times is different than working on a 45-year-old body that's given birth for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Working with someone who has experienced more birth trauma, so more of a mental health impact, versus someone who mental health-wise has not been as impacted.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who is minimally sleep deprived versus someone whose child and children never sleep. Someone who's a single mom. Someone who's not a single mom, but has a partner who doesn't even want to help. Someone who, the list goes on forever. And despite that, let me tell you something that's super empowering. The body heals. In spite of all that craziness, the body heals. So my job is really just to provide a more optimal environment physically, but also externally for healing.
I love this.
And how I do it is, it's pretty simplified. We're not here to talk about the formulaic, how does Janette Yee do postpartum rehabilitation? But literally, my big take-home message is, you do your 5-minute routine. So I'm a big proponent about talking about the concept of the 5-minute routine. Why? Yep. Because it doesn't take a long time. I think when people understand that, hey, my workouts aren't the drive half hour to the velodrome to like get all my gear on and then like train for 3 hours and then right? It's 5 minutes. Okay. 5 minutes. And then the other big concept that I talk about are the ABCs, which you and all other therapists and all fitness instructors already know what they are. It's just, I call them ABCs: alignment, breathing, core control. We all do it. And we apply ABCs to any sport, any injury, any age, doesn't matter. Yeah. I happen to apply that to childbirth. So how varied is it? It is extremely varied, but at the same time, it's not. Everybody benefits from these two, main concepts that I use: the 5-minute routine, the concept of the ABCs. And I think that becomes so empowering for the athlete when they realize, because the biggest 2 objections, James, is I don't have time.
Right.
And I have no idea what the heck I'm doing. Right? Again, absolutely. That applies to all injuries, all sports, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So when I can address those 2 things right off the bat, I need 5 minutes and you're doing the ABCs. You start with baby steps and that creates confidence. And then that athlete moves from, okay, I just learned how to use my belly binder confidently, and now I can get out of bed with less pain. You start from there, and before she knows it, she's, strapping on her running shoes and trying to run for the first time, right? It's, or whatever sport she's doing. So, it's very different, but also very same.
I think it's amazing. And for those that are listening, and I'm sure anybody that tuned in is still listening, the analogy, it parallels, and I think you hit it, and I just want to repeat that, but it parallels every athletic pursuit, right?
Yes.
The training age, the games played, the minutes, the
Yes.
number of years they've been playing a sport, the home life. How do they do outside of the sport? How do they do within the sport? How do they do, what is their perception of their environment, and how do they interact in that environment, in the gym, out of the gym? Is there place for 3-hour workouts at an arena or in a gym? Absolutely, but maybe not in this case. And that next piece is, as a therapist, we are the modality. We are not the healer, but we are the modality to create and coach the environment to its most optimal level for, like you said, the body to heal. It's going to do intrinsically, it's going to heal the way that it's going to heal. We just need to facilitate that and coach that in a manner that supports it. And I think the way that you put it is brilliant. Protective in recovery, protective in our interaction, and our ability to, again, to refer out. And the thing that I keep hearing and have experienced in various ways through my own practice and my own life is the things that are outside of the physical healing as well. Do you have a network, or believe in a network of mental health practitioners? Do you have access to that? Has that been a part of your development and your learning? And then for those that haven't yet, how do you make those connections? How do you reach out and say, this is what I do. Can I use you as somebody I can refer to? How does that evolve?
Oh my gosh, very organically. And, you know, I'm nodding like crazy. Nobody can see me doing this, but I mean, that mental health piece.
Yeah. Well,
the brain cannot be separated from the body. And for new grads coming out of school, we're given the tools to heal the physical body, but we are given minimal tools to address the emotional side of healing. And we hear about this thing called sports psychology. Yeah, the psychology of healing. And you know, what are they? It's everything. It actually is everything. You show me an athlete who comes out of their ACL surgery, two of them, one who wants it so bad they're coming back to their next season, the other one who says, I am done my sport and I'm so depressed with this. Who's going to have the better outcome for healing? We all know the answer, right? So yes, that mental health part of healing is so important. As a matter of fact, it's so important that I have an online Caesarean birth rehabilitation program. It's 4 sections. The first section is entirely and only the psychology of healing.
Beautiful.
Because you and I didn't talk about birth trauma. Again, that's going to be part 9 of 10 or whatever, however many segments we're going to do.
100%.
Right. But as I went along and learned more in this perinatal journey, I realized, oh my God, my limitations with birth trauma, fertility or the difficulty with conception, miscarriage, stillbirth, and all those words to describe mom's failure to bring a child to full-term alive baby, which are all such awful words. That is so loaded, and you cannot ignore that was somebody's journey.
Absolutely.
Right? And then when the baby arrives, and I have to say, last year, I was going to work with an athlete who was expecting her 3rd baby, and that 3rd baby was going to arrive in a few weeks' time, and that baby died. She had a stillborn child at 32 weeks, a perfectly healthy mother. I did not have any ability in my toolbox to even provide the smallest bit of help other than I sat with her and wept.
Absolutely.
And that really drove it home. That was a pivotal moment last year when I realized I need to build a network of mental health specialists. and talk about it every single chance I get. That if dear athlete, if you feel what I'm talking about today triggers you, if you feel that I'm showing this exercise, but you can't bring yourself to touch your body because it makes you queasy, can I invite you to be reflective for just one moment and ask, do I need someone to help me with that maybe? And if I do,
and to know, and to know
what
that
should
there
I
are
do?
people that can. Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
man, I just, it's heartbreaking. I'm sure that it's touched a lot of people. You know, losing a baby who's nearing full term, or losing a baby, or any of these pieces that people have experienced. To know, there aren't words that anybody can say, but at the same time, to know that there are other people that have been through it, to know that there are people out there that can help with these things. And Janette, like, I don't mean to put you on the spot and say, like, reach out to Janette, but like, Janette is well connected, and I'm more than happy to do my part to get people, if you're listening to this podcast and this is something you haven't thought about, or this is something that triggers something in you, please just know you're not alone. Please reach out and ask for help, because there is help out there, and it's not going to solve the problem immediately, but it's definitely going to help in coping and create an environment for healing to happen. So it's an amazing journey to walk through this with you today on a podcast, and all the things that you're doing, and see sort of, you know, the quote unquote the highs and the lows, and the development that you have undergone in your own journey. And we haven't even talked about you, a mother of two, and how that shaped. And so I think there's a whole lot more here that we can unpack, but as an initial conversation, Janette, there's so much here. I mean, I'm making notes, I'm taking notes, I'm writing down what we can talk about next time. I'm absolutely floored with your passion, your energy, and all the work that you put out there with all of the things that you're doing. I don't think I'm ever going to need a diastasis recti workshop for myself, but if I don't know that exists, then I don't know that exists. And so if we can help put this out there for people, to know that there are these workshops online, to know that there are people like Janette Yee who is willing to come to you to give you the thing that you deserve and that you may not even know exists. This is absolutely a thing where athletic therapy reaches, practitioners reach, people who listen to this can say, wow, I need to get in touch. I need to learn about that. How do I go about? And there's so many lessons here, Janette. And I just feel absolutely humbled and grateful for your time, and for being here, and for sharing this, because those that are out there recouping the benefits of not only your knowledge, but your energy, your enthusiasm. And I know we're on this call and we're seeing each other, and people listening aren't, but I'm sure they can feel your smile, my smile. We're back and forth here, and we're turning this into a bit of a love fest, which is fine. I'm okay throwing that out there as well. But I would love to have you on again. And I think maybe we'll package this thing up and have some other people on who can ask some really great questions, and talk and navigate some of these pieces to greater depth. If you're willing, you don't have to answer on the spot.
I'd love that. Perfect. Absolutely.
Perfect. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know it is a work day. I know it's an online kind of day as well. It's rainy outside, so lots to do inside. I'll wrap up with just sort of one final question, I guess, and allow you to sort of take this to the finish line. If you're advising anybody, a therapist, an athletic therapist, an RMT student, a chiro, whoever that's sort of searching what's next, what would you advise somebody who's in that sort of trying to figure it all out? And we'll just leave it with that.
That's easy. My answer is, you got to do what you love. You got to do what you love. All I knew is I loved rugby. So I worked with rugby athletes. And then that showed me another door. Hey, my rugby athletes started having babies. And then that showed me another door. And then, hey, I had my babies. And that solidified that there was a gap. And I knew that I could do this. And I was going to, and I can fill that gap. And I want to fill that gap. I don't work. You know, people ask me, my kids go, Mommy, They don't say, "Oh, poor mommy has to go to work." They go, "Which mommies are you going to help today?" They ask me, right?
Amazing.
Yeah, mommy doesn't work and go, blah, blah, this is horrific. I love what I do. Those kids, my kids know I love what I do. I don't work a day in my life. I play, I meet wonderful, amazing people. We share incredible stories. And then we're all united in this community of parenthood. It is, and who knows, maybe we'll talk 10 years from now and it'll be something else. I know it will be something different, but the point is you got to chase your passion and then doors just open up. I have been, I don't want to say lucky, but at least I knew enough to follow what I loved.
A beautiful summation of all of these things, and follow what you love. You can't go wrong. Mistakes happen, but those are just opportunities to learn and to grow and all of these things along the way. And you're right, just keep going and doors open, and your final destiny or your final destination today may not be your final destination tomorrow. So
That's right.
Go with it, follow it. Session 82. First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast with Janette Yee. Your handle on Instagram for people to follow you. Do you want to give any information for contact if people want to reach out just before we head off here?
For sure. I'm very active on Instagram. The handle's at Ask Janette, as in I'm going to ask Janette a question. Because you know what I always say, the more we learn, the more questions we have. So that's where I'm at.
Beautiful. And you can find her there on Instagram. You can find her through me, through our channels here. An amazing exploration today. And thank you so much for showcasing your story, your passion, your wisdom, your energy, all of these beautiful things. And for everybody out there, thanks for tuning in. We will chat next time. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this community. Check us out online, firststartherapy.com. That's FIRSTAR therapy.com. Or email us with feedback, consult@firststartherapy.com. CONSULT@firststartherapy.com. On Instagram @firststar.therapy, and our podcast host @letschat.at. This is First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast.